Ghost Adventures is a paranormal investigation show that's been on the air for, and I was in disbelief when I read this, 26 seasons. As someone new to the show, 300 episodes over 26 seasons is a very intimidating catalog to walk into. But what better place to start than the start? And the very first episode of Ghost Adventures is at a place called Bobby Mackey's Music World. Season 1, Episode 1. This is what started it all.
Stop! Run! Stop running!
Bobby Mackey's Music World has been visited by many paranormal investigators over the years. Sam and Colby.
What we're about to experience might be one of the most demonic places in the entire world.
Could this be Conjuring level?
I think so.
Ryan and Shane from BuzzFeed Unsolved.
Bobby Mackey's, the most haunted nightclub in America. At least the sign's in nice, fun font.
It's like Cheers with demons.
Jason Hawes and Taps.
Bobby Mackey's has a very dark history.
And many more, including Ghost Adventures.
One of the most haunted places in the United States.
You ready?
But was Bobby Mackey's Music World really haunted? Or is this more a case of misinformation gone wild? Either way, I'm ready to scratch the surface of this place. That's a joke for later. You'll know when it happens. His name is Zach Bagans. He never believed in ghosts until he came face to face with one. So he set out on a quest to capture what he once saw onto video. With no big camera crew following them around, he is joined only by his fellow investigator Nick Groff and their equipment tech Aaron Goodwin. The three of them will travel to some of the most highly active paranormal locations, where they will spend an entire night being locked down from dusk until dawn. Raw, extreme.
Stop running!
These are their ghost adventures. Ghost Adventures is a notorious show for a lot of different reasons. First of all, it's a very dramatic ghost hunting show.
We're not running from you!
And secondly, within the last decade or so, it's apparently gotten increasingly off the rails. I say apparently because I obviously haven't watched the recent shows. But people tell me that every other episode these days, Zach gets, quote, possessed.
Stop!
Let go.
Honestly, the original plan for this video was to simply react to the original 8 episodes in Ghost Adventures Season 1, but after I watched them investigate Bobby Mackey's Music World, I don't know, I got sidetracked. I started going down the BMMW rabbit hole. Yeah, BMMW sounds like a lascivious search term. We'll think of a different nickname. Bobby Mackey's is located in Wilder, Kentucky, or at least it was. It's set to be demolished any day now. I think you'll probably understand why once you see what the place looked like. Anyway, it's a honky-tonk where locals can come two-step to country music on a Friday night, but it's also a little quirky.
This place is haunted.
Haunted by who exactly?
In 1896, a girl named Pearl Bryan was beheaded 2.5 miles from here. The two men that murdered this girl, their names were Alonzo Walling and Scott Jackson. The bloodhounds tracked the killers to this very site, looking for the girl's head. It was never found. And her head probably washed out into the Licking River. It's my opinion it was given here as a blood sacrifice to the devil.
Okay. Whoa. There's a lot to unpack there. A beheading? A ritual blood sacrifice? I mean, is any of this even true? So first of all, you should know that the guy saying all this is a man named Doug Hensley, who wrote a book called Hell's Gate, which is all about the sordid history of the building that eventually became Bobby Mackey's Music World. I take anything a person like this says with a grain of salt. After all, this man has a book to sell. The fact is, he does stand to profit from sensationalizing the place. With that said, the murder of Pearl Bryan does appear to be something that actually happened. Her body was found beheaded, however, it wasn't 2.5 miles from Bobby Mackey's place like Doug says. Science writer Sharon Hill, in collaboration with the organization Military Veterans Paranormal, investigated these claims and found that news clippings and court documents from the time state that the murder site was even further, 4 miles from the building. So, according to Doug Hensley's theory that Pearl Bryan's head was used in a satanic ritual sacrifice in the building that would eventually become Bobby Mackey's place, it was a small slaughterhouse back then, that means that Pearl's murderer carried her detached head for 4 miles. Now, if you walk an average pace, say 3 miles an hour, That means it'll take about an hour and 20 minutes to walk 4 miles. And that's not including any time you spend pausing, looking around in the pitch black darkness, wondering if you're going the right way. Not only is 4 miles a long distance to walk, but Doug claims that late 19th century investigators traced the blood trail for 4 miles, and it led to this slaughterhouse. Which I think is the most unbelievable part of the story. I mean, think about how bad they were at investigating murders back then.
It was really easy to get away with murder before they knew about DNA. Detective, we found a pool of the killer's blood in that hallway. Be like, gross. Mop it up.
So Doug is saying that they walked for an hour 20 with a human head in their hands, completely undetected, risking it all just to get to this small slaughterhouse so they could do a ritual sacrifice with the head, specifically in said slaughterhouse. I don't know, I gotta say, that sounds like a very impractical story there, Doug. But Zach Bagans? Well, he eats it up. Nick Groff, one of the other 3 main guys from Ghost Adventures, actually came back to Wilder, Kentucky 10 years later in 2018 for his show Paranormal Lockdown, where they talked to a local historian about Pearl Bryan's connection to Bobby Mackey's place. Specifically, the claim that she was sacrificed in the old well under the building.
The sacrifice took place at the abandoned well, the last remnant of the slaughterhouse.
The historian doesn't seem to have any respect for these claims, however.
We always heard the story that the head was found in the well.
The head just never was found, and there's no evidence that they have any idea where it went to.
So anybody who says that, it's basically an urban legend that they're just repeating.
It's an urban legend, yes.
They even clarify that when Alonzo Walling and Scott Jackson were hanged for their crimes, it was even further away from Bobby Mackey's.
And the hangings didn't even take place near that location either.
That was down in the city of Newport. That would have been roughly 6 miles away.
Well, well, well. Looks like that little gruesome detail about Pearl Bryan's decapitated head being unceremoniously tossed down a slaughterhouse well for no reason whatsoever except mustache-twirling levels of evil is looking to be very, very unlikely. Which makes the rest of the episode kind of awkward because they're constantly talking to Pearl, Alonzo, and Scott as if they have any kind of connection to the place.
Standing at the bottom of the well where murderers disposed of Pearl Bryan's head.
The psychics believe that Alonzo Walling and Scott Jackson's spirits stay there a lot.
That's where Pearl Bryan's head was thrown down when she was decapitated.
Wow. But the awkwardness doesn't stop there because author Doug Hensley has another tragic story for us.
Back in the 1930s, a dance hall girl named Johanna was pregnant by a crooner named Robert Randall. Robert Randall was murdered by Johanna's father.
I think she poisoned her father and committed suicide herself.
But wait, there's a twist.
Bobby Mackey, his mother named him Randy Mackey. At 1 day old, something came over Bobby's mom and she changed his name to Robert Randall Mackey. The crooner that was murdered here was named Robert Randall.
Okay, once again, there's a lot to unpack here. So how much of this Johanna story is factual? Well, let's start with the parts that are true. According to the aforementioned article by Sharon Hill and Military Veterans Paranormal, there was indeed a Johanna Reagan who committed suicide by poison. But it was in 1914, not the 1930s, and she was not a dancer. In fact, she was a married housewife. Other than that, there's no record of a Johanna that fits the description given by Doug Hensley. And that's about it. There was once a woman named Johanna who did die by poison, but she lived at a completely different time and had a completely different background and a completely different love life. So in other words, a completely different person. So where's all this other stuff coming from? All these details about Robert Randall and the rest of the story. Well, apparently it comes from a journal that's claimed to be written by Johanna, discovered on the building's premises by caretaker Carl Lawson. This guy.
This place is haunted.
You may be wondering, can we see this journal? Well, unfortunately, no actual physical journal was ever produced. Apparently, Carl Lawson simply dictated the details of its entries to Doug Hensley. Ah, I see. So they're basing the details of this entire story on the transcription of a document that no one else saw. Sounds kind of familiar. I think this kind of thing has happened before.
Dum 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 dum.
So far, there's a lot of history not lining up, and the more I looked into it, the more I found that not even the people who worked at Bobby Mackey's could keep their story straight over the years. First, they say Johanna was a dancer in the 30s.
Way back in the 30s.
Back in the 1930s.
This 2015 article from North Kentucky Tribune writer Ryan Clark, however, says that the Bobby Mackey's tour guide at the time clarified she was actually a dancer in the 40s. The Sharon Hill article we've referenced a few times in this video starts out by saying the claim was actually that she was a nightclub performer in 1950, before going on to clarify the only Johanna they could find on record died in 1914. However, the real nail in the coffin for the Johanna timeline is this dubious claim.
She left a poem upstairs in the spotlight room.
This is the love poem that Johanna allegedly scrawled on the wall about her lover Robert Randall. But embarrassingly, these are actually just the lyrics to a 1951 Tony Arden song called Never. So obviously this wall scrawl couldn't have been written by Johanna, even using any of the dates we've been given. Johanna, Johanna, you didn't exist. So yeah, I would say this is strike two for Bobby Mackey's lore. There's no evidence that Pearl Bryan or her murderers had anything to do with the location, and there's no evidence that this Johanna person ever existed. At least not their version of her. Which, again, results in some pretty awkward moments for the rest of the episode.
Johanna, are you in here? I'm in your secret room right now, sweetie.
No. Don't say that word.
I know what happened, Johanna.
There are some other inconsistencies and embellishments, but we can save those for later. Let's just say I've done my due diligence. Let's take a break from all that boring fact-checking stuff and see what we came to see. Zach Bagans yelling at stuff.
Stop! Run! Stop running!
Stop! Stop running! Away from your screen and be seated for today's sponsor, Factor. Factor makes meeting your nutrition goals easier than ever by delivering fresh, dietitian-approved meals right to your doorstep, ready to eat in just 2 minutes. Head to Factor75.com or click the link below and use code WOLF50 to get 50% off your first Factor box and 20% off your next month of orders. That's code WOLF50 at Factor75.com to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month of orders. It's summer and it's hot out there. But if there's one kind of heat I like, it's microwave heat. Whether it's a Calorie Smart or a Protein Plus option, I've been heating up my meals all summer long. Plus, Factor also offers snack options like smoothies, which are perfect for summer. There's no faster way to my heart than a mango smoothie. And, well, Factor just sent me like 6 of them for free. So, thanks, Factor. You're in my heart now. It was that easy. Head to Factor75.com or click the link below and use code WOLF50 to get 50% off your first Factor box and 20% off your next month of orders. That's code WOLF50 at Factor75.com to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month of orders. Thanks, Factor, for sponsoring this video. Now let's get back to looking up old newspaper articles.
Raw. Extreme. These are our ghost adventures.
After our main man Zach Bagans learns the full sordid history of this place, he becomes fed up with these ghosts.
I want to provoke the hell out of them.
I want to taunt the hell out of them. I want to provoke them, give them a taste of their own medicine.
You do, right? I want you to.
I'll provoke the out of them.
I will. I'll do it. You think I won't do it? I ain't afraid of no ghost.
Left behind from the days of the slaughterhouse, the well was the key to the hauntings at the club.
Quick fact check here, because this isn't the first time they've brought up the idea that Bobby Mackey's was originally a slaughterhouse. According to Bobby Mackey's tour guide Kim Short in 2015, this place was never a slaughterhouse. That's just part of the urban legend. It was more like a modern butcher shop. But butcher shop doesn't sound as dramatic as slaughterhouse, where slaughter happens. Caretaker Matt Coates gives Zach a tour of the building's basement.
Hold on just a second. I have to check for the bat. Right now we're checking for bats.
Thanks for translating, Zach. What would we do without you? Matt tells Zach some interesting stories.
There was the satanic circle. It was glowing green, and the floor was hot.
And they just so happened to come across a beheaded Jesus statue.
Now, when did that happen?
I don't know.
They took a look at the old well, known as Hell's Gate, because according to them, it's literally a portal to hell.
Right behind us, we have a staircase that goes nowhere. Well, it's led to believe that here's your portal from hell, there's your portal to heaven.
Really? That is really, really weird.
So you have your two portals out of this world.
Okay, listen, trust me when I say I don't like getting on here and just calling someone a liar or an embellisher. I'd much rather point to some contradicting evidence or fact check something or present some kind of proof. But sometimes I have to fall back on a 3 strikes you're out gut feeling system instead. Like the glowing green, hot to the touch, satanic circle story. That's strike 1. That's such a corny story. Then they just so happen to come across the beheaded Jesus statue. And he's like, I don't know when that happened, I swear. Strike 2, man. This isn't a strike 3 or anything, but I just wanted to mention that in this scene with his little portal to hell, stairway to heaven story, look at the way he stares at Zach. It's just that in my life, I've noticed a pattern with untrustworthy people, and that's that this is the way they look at you when they're pulling your leg. They're studying your reactions very closely so they can monitor if you're eating it up or if you're starting to disbelieve them. Again, I don't like just calling someone a liar, but sometimes the tells are just too strong to ignore.
I want to sit over here tonight, 3 in the morning. Aaron?
That's about what time she was killed.
That's about what time Pearl Bryan was killed? How could you possibly know that, Matt? Strike 3, you're out. Anyway, the Ghost Adventures crew, or the GAC, as we'll refer to them from now on, get up to a lot of mischief here. They go into the sewers underneath Bobby Mackey's so they can get a look at the other side of the sealed up well. Now, it's worth noting, according to Ryan Clark's 2015 North Kentucky Tribune article, there were actually 3 wells, not just the one they call Hell's Gate. So even though it doesn't matter, since Pearl Bryan had nothing to do with this place that we can tell, this might not even be the right well. But enough fuddy-duddy fact-checking already. It's time for the lockdown.
We're here. Were you guys waiting for us? Because here we are for you.
Zach says this a lot in the episode. I'm right here for ya.
We're here for you. Right here for you. We're looking for you.
I gotta say, I find Zach very entertaining. I can see why Ghost Adventures is the most successful ghost show of all time. It also finally clicked for me why so many of these YouTube ghost hunters dress like Hot Topic kids straight out of 2004. Because I've always been like, why is this look such a trend? Well, I think I solved the mystery. I mean, he's missing the hair, but the rest of it kind of tracks. He's the fashion inspo. All right, back to them trying to intimidate the ghosts.
We knew taunting would be the best way to draw out these spirits.
Was that you that made that noise? Go ahead, do it again. I want to see what it's all about. Come and harm me.
I would later regret that command.
Zach, Nick, and Aaron bulldog stance their way around Bobby Mackey's music world before an unforgettable scene unfolds. Nick is in the bathroom, freaked out by a ghost he claims pounded on the wall. He's on edge already, but then the AC comes on.
What the Oh my Stop! Stop! Run! Stop running!
Stop! Stop running! Oh man, Nick gets a stern talking to from Zach about this one.
Do not run. Do not run. Stop running.
On one hand, it looks like Nick just kind of barrels into Zach, so to a certain extent I get it. That would frustrate me too, but Zach starts laying it on pretty thick.
Do not run from this. We're not running from you!
I mean, his ego is at stake here, guys. Nick is ruining the carefully crafted, tough guy image that Zach has cultivated. Thanks a lot, Nick. Now these ghosts are gonna think we're a bunch of pansies. You know, one of the criticisms I've heard from Ghost Adventures fans about Zach is that he starts out the series just fine, but then in later seasons, he gets a big ego and is really rude to his friends. But I gotta say, this is episode 1, and he snaps at Nick and Aaron a lot.
I heard that, dude.
Shut up.
I'm guessing he gets more overt with it as the series goes on, but yeah, the ego-fueled shutdowns are alive and well, even in episode 1. But yeah, Nick gets spooked here by the AC coming on. Here, look, you can hear what it sounds like in Sam and Colby's video. This thing is loud.
When I came walking down, yeah, that's what I can turn that off for y'all if y'all like.
The GAT guys get bored of the bar and decide to head down to the basement.
So this is what they call Hell's Gate, huh? So this is what they call Hell's Gate, this well.
Oh, is this what they call Hell's Gate? Thanks for clearing that up.
This is the well. Guys, this is the well that Carl, the old maintenance guy, discovered one day and found a piece of a human skull. He found a piece of a human skull.
So caretaker Carl Lawson not only found the mysterious journal from Johanna, but he also found a piece of skull in the well. Huh. Interesting.
Carl also stated to us that he wished he never discovered this well, which he believes opened this building to all its demonic attacks on the living.
Oh, so Carl also discovered the well. I'm starting to notice a pattern here.
If this is the portal of hell, well, why don't you come up out of that ground and come and get us?
It's at this moment that things really go off the rails.
Dude, I'm getting like this bad burning sensation on my back.
Zach says his back is burning. When Nick and Aaron investigate, they witness the unthinkable. On Zach's back are 3 long scratch marks. So yeah, the spirits scratched him. Needless to say, Zach is pissed.
Did someone just scratch me?
They don't show it, but supposedly Zach gets more and more scratches as the minutes drag on. I guess you could say this spirit has Zach scratch fever. The next 3 minutes of the show are just him bulldogging around the basement, shrieking about being scratched.
I want to talk to the piece of who scratched me on my back.
I get that the idea of a spirit scratching you is kind of freaky, but once again, it just seems like Zach's more concerned with looking tough. He even says as much.
I bet you're saying to yourself, wow, what a tough guy this guy is. I scratched the hell out of him, and he's still coming for more.
Yeah, Zach, I bet the spirits are real impressed with you right now. All right, so let's talk about this scratch. There's only 3 possible explanations, and I strongly favor one over the other 2. I'll let you guess which one. Explanation 1 is that a spirit actually scratched him. Some spirit at Bobby Mackey's decided to scratch him on his lower back. Why? I guess just to be petty. I don't know. Explanation 2 is that he scratched his back on some kind of sharp object, maybe during all the ghost commotion, and he just didn't notice it until later. I mean, that's happened to me before. I'll get a scratch on my arm and I won't notice until hours later. Oh, when did I get that? You know. Explanation 3 is that they faked it. Anyway, that's basically all that happens during the lockdown. There's a couple other moments, like some mysterious figure skulking around the basement. Frankly, I wouldn't be surprised if this was a Bobby Mackey's employee messing with them, assuming they didn't just set this up themselves. And they also give the satanic rituals another mention.
Right where I'm standing right now is where they did sacrifices on animals, and a lot of people believe they did human sacrifices in this room too.
It's worth revisiting that Ryan Clark article I quoted earlier, in which Bobby Mackey's tour guide Kim Short clarifies that there has never been any proof of satanic symbols, sacrifice, or other rituals taking place at Bobby Mackey's. Even Nick Groff, who visited Bobby Mackey's in 2021 for his show Death Walker, clarifies that there's no record of a cult not only in this building, but in the entire county.
As for the satanic cults and their whereabouts and activities show that none ever existed in any part of Campbell County in the late 1800s.
And according to the Sharon Hill article, there was no satanic or occult activity associated with this building until after Bobby Mackey bought the place in 1978. I wonder why that could be.
And as you can see, it's almost like this whole wall has been doused with blood. You can actually see drip marks right here.
My man, those are clearly water stains. The timeline for these rumors of satanic rituals seem to line up with exactly when the notorious satanic panic of the early 1980s took place. Now, if you're not familiar with the satanic panic phenomenon, the short version is that after a tumultuous 1970s period of all these notorious serial killers, like Son of Sam, for example, who claimed that he was killing under the orders of a demon, to the movies The Exorcist and The Omen, which featured demons and the Antichrist, respectively, to the Charles Manson cult and other similar events. The culture had Satan and cults on the brain. And there was a subsequent widespread moral panic where there was a high negative interest in this topic. And this satanic panic phenomenon wasn't just restricted to the 1980s either. It continued into the 90s, and I would say it was still shambling around the zeitgeist even into the 2000s, like in this episode from 2008, for example.
I'm ready to get out of here.
I'm ready to get the hell out of here.
They close out the episode by talking to Bishop James Long, who is also a demonologist that practices exorcisms.
I am an exorcist, and I would be ready to perform an exorcism.
Look at Zach here. He looks like he's trying to contain a laugh. Zach shows him the infamous scratches.
3 marks is the mocking of the Trinity. And so that's why it's demonic in nature.
You know, I hadn't thought about it like that before, but I guess the demon, when it was preparing to scratch Zach, it was like, do I use 1 claw? Or do I use 2 claws? Oh, I know what I'll do. I'll use 3 claws, and that way I can mock the Trinity on Zach Bagan's back. It's probably happened around 3 a.m. too. A double mocking. I'm also just now realizing that some of my favorite video games blatantly mocked the Trinity, and I never realized it. And with that, Zach wraps up the episode.
If there is a place that houses pure evil, Bobby Mackey's music world contains it.
Well, just 2 seasons later, Gat came back. Back to the building that, as Zach so eloquently put it, contains the place that houses pure evil. Bobby Mackey's. They returned to Bobby Mackey's in season 4.
If there was ever a location where the Ghost Adventures crew would admit a tiny bit of fear upon returning, it would have to be Bobby Mackey's Music World in Wilder, Kentucky.
Oh boy, the long-awaited sequel. Don't get too excited though. Nothing in this episode is able to top Scratchgate, unfortunately. They spend a lot of the episode's first half accusing the spirits of Bobby Mackey's of attaching to them and following them home.
This is one of the only places where we had stuff follow us home, and that's where it gets personal.
Do you think that investigating Bobby Mackey's music world was a factor in ruining your marriage?
I believe it's probably an 80% factor, yes.
Aaron goes on to talk about how he and his wife Sheena would both have dreams, nightmares about Bobby Mackey's, and that when he would go on the road, the spirits would torment her at home.
So many nightmares, so many dreams, and you know, we're best friends, but we had to call it off because whatever haunts me, which is from Bob Mackey's, and I
had
know
an effect on her.
Had an effect on her.
Now, I don't feel too comfortable hypothesizing about personal issues like this, so I'll just say that A, I'd be interested in hearing her corroborate this rather than just take Aaron's word for it. And B, if his wife was being tormented by a spirit that followed Aaron home across state lines from Bobby Mackey's, then I don't see how a divorce would stop anything. Couldn't it just follow her after she moves out? Anyway, Aaron's not the only one who suffered from an attachment.
And I heard pots and pans banging around in my kitchen.
This was right after our Mackey's investigation.
And then I hear the faucet being filled up.
I had a girl who I was dating at the time have a rosary get ripped off of her neck, taken about 50 yards down my hallway, placed in a guest bedroom with the door shut.
Now, obviously, this is all unverifiable information, which to me is the equivalent of a nothing burger. I will say, for what it's worth, I think Nick has the most benign and ultimately believable story. I mean, I've woken up in the middle of the night thinking I've heard things too. This stuff about flying rosaries, though, that's a pretty extravagant one. I have to wonder why the spirit's wasting time doing that when it can just scratch him again. I mean, that's gonna piss him off a lot more, right?
This should really piss it off!
But the GAC aren't the only ones who were followed home. In between this return episode and the original, Ghost Adventures held a public event at Bobby Mackey's in 2009 for 100 guests to ghost hunt en masse. And some of them had stories of being followed home too.
It was something going on in my room.
Something followed you.
Yeah.
A couple times I heard my name called. This place is no joke.
This stuff really happens.
Wow, these spirits sure keep busy.
When they're not mocking the Trinity and scratching people at Bobby Mackey's, they're following at least 5 individual people home across state lines, just to mess with them. Zach even hypothesizes that the tourism is part of the appeal of this place for the spirits there.
He brought fresh meat to this place. He brings fresh blood here every single weekend.
Okay, I'm gonna ask the obvious question here. Let's say the Bobby Mackey spirits are rubbing their hands together eagerly for all the tourists and paranormal investigators to arrive so they can follow them home and clang pots and pans together in their kitchen. If they're so interested in doing that, then why aren't they haunting a busier nightclub? Wilder, Kentucky has a population of 3,000. And up until 1990, it was less than 700. They can cross state lines and follow people home all across the country, but you're telling me they choose to be here the rest of the time? What's really confusing me is that they spend so much time emphasizing the history of the place in the first episode. The murder of Pearl Bryan, the tragedy of Johanna the Dancer, and so on. They take great effort to localize the haunting to this one dangerous building. But then in the return episode, suddenly it's a free-for-all. They were followed home. The spirits can roam anywhere. They're not restricted to just Bobby Mackey's building. The story just isn't consistent to me. It feels like it's about Pearl and Johanna when it's convenient, and when it's not, it's about some nebulous demons. Anyway, after all that, they finally start the lockdown.
Deja vu.
All right, Zach, you cornball. Unfortunately, the investigation isn't nearly as interesting this time around. Even Zach admits as much.
There's nothing here right now.
Yeah, it's pretty...
I'm gonna be honest. I don't sense in here.
Most of the episode is them replaying audio they supposedly captured but didn't react to in the moment. They also introduced the term Class A EVP, which I found very entertaining.
This Class A EVP. Was this spirit referring to the sharp scissors on the other table?
Man, these spirits are perceptive enough to travel all across the country following people home, but they can't tell the difference between a knife and a pair of scissors. It must be a demon so ancient that it doesn't even know what scissors are. There's a lot of these audio clips, and they spend the majority of the episode showing them off.
This is a Class A intelligent response that gave us chills.
What do you only live in the basement for? You can't come up to the bar?
First problem I have with these, obviously, is that we're just supposed to take their word for it that these recordings aren't simply created in post-production. But that's the easy debunk. Ah, well, they faked it. But I want to look into this, because maybe these are genuine recordings, and maybe there's an alternate explanation for the noises. So let's look into it. First, we have to look at what recorders they're using. The one Zach's holding throughout this episode, he holds really close to the chest and there's never a good shot of it. So I had to watch another Ghost Adventures episode from season 4 to get a good look. Here's a screenshot from episode 2 where they go to the Rolling Hills Asylum. Looks like it's a Sony digital recorder. It took me a while, but I was finally able to identify this as the Sony ICD-B25. Now we get to do one of my favorite things I get to do in these videos, and that's look up old device manuals. Here's the manual for the B25. Looks like it was manufactured in 2002. Pretty old by the time they filmed this episode in 2010, but I have a theory about that. We'll discuss later. At the very beginning of the manual, Sony makes it clear what they intended this recorder to be used for. It's a dictation machine, so you can pull it out and record voice memos for yourself. Keep in mind, this was obviously before smartphones made this kind of thing obsolete. Now, since it's intended to be used as a dictation machine, Sony didn't make this thing with sound quality in mind. And under the specifications, we can see the frequency response is listed at 7300 Hz for SP and 3500 Hz for LP. Now, you may be wondering, 7300 Hz? Well, is that good? The answer is no, it's not. It means this recorder captures very, poor sound quality. When the GAC plays these recordings back, you may understandably be under the impression that the high background noise level is because they boosted the audio by a lot to hear these hidden voices. The text on screen saying enhanced audio replay certainly helps with that assumption, but they didn't boost the audio. It just sounds like that. If you don't believe me, I have a Sony B25 right here, and we can listen to it for ourselves. Testing, testing. Joanna, are you here?
Testing, testing. Joanna, are you here?
Wait, it's not, hang on, wait, hang on, I'm gonna listen to that. It does legitimately sound, it does legitimately sound like there's some kind of noise. I guess Johanna's among us. So yeah, you heard it yourself, these things just sound like that. I mean, it's just constant in the background. They're not enhancing anything. By the way, these things are tiny. So yeah, the Sony B25 is a very low quality recorder, but it's not the only one that they're using in this episode. This one that Aaron puts down on the table is an Olympus VN 3100 PC. I checked out the manual for this one too, and even with 4 different quality settings, it tops out at 7200 Hz frequency response. That's for extra high quality mode, by the way. So this one also has very poor recording quality. Alright, so we've established that these sound recorders are really bad. So what? Well, ghost hunters tend to use these bad recorders on purpose. One of the most notorious digital audio recorders is the Panasonic DR60, and eBay sellers are gouging ghost hunters for over $1,000 a pop to get one of these things. In fact, even though it was manufactured all the way back in 1998, ghost hunters still use them today. Here, Ghost Adventures tweeted out a photo of the DR60 just a couple years ago. These things are iconic, but why? Well, if you'd like to learn a little more about the DR60 and similar low-quality sound recorders that are beloved by ghost hunters, my favorite skeptic, Kenny Biddle, did a deep dive into these sketchy EVP recorders in this video. He goes into all the gruesome technical details. I'll leave it linked in the description. Now, not to spoil Kenny's video, but the reason why these recorders are used so pervasively in the ghost hunting world is because they're very, very good at giving false positives. A lot like the ones you see in this episode of Ghost Adventures. Is this a ghost that's really saying, "Take the knife," about a pair of scissors? Or is it just an extremely low quality recording in a place with a lot of ambient sound? Plus, you've got a great example of the power of suggestion here with the subtitle. If you didn't have the text here, would you even hear this exact line, or would you hear noise? For example, here's a clip from the Rolling Hills Asylum episode of Ghost Adventures. What do you think the ghost is saying in this recording? No cheating. All right, you give up? Here's the answer. Yeah, did you have that sentence on your bingo card? I sure didn't. That's not what I heard at all. In conclusion, even though they devote much of the Return to Bobby Mackey's episode to these recordings, I find it almost impossible to put much stock in them at all. They're using really bad equipment that was old even by 2010 standards when they filmed this, and frankly, without the subtitles, I couldn't even tell you what they said. And even then, the stuff that they did say was kind of funny.
Hey, tell you what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna kill Zach. Or, I might just scratch him again. Or send a rosary flying through his apartment. Or do absolutely nothing at all.
A demon declaring for all to hear that they're going to kill Zach Bagans is creepy on paper, but then it just doesn't happen. In fact, nothing happens to Zach. He doesn't even get the Trinity mocked on his back again. Kinda takes all the oomph out of the threat, you know? And funnily enough, in the one other episode I watched, the Rolling Hills Asylum one that I talked about earlier, Zach was also supposedly threatened in an EVP. So many spirits threatening to kill Zach, the main character of the universe. Well, I'm sure we'll see them threaten the other investigators too, right?
Hey there, demons. It's me, your boy.
Here's another funny one. The GAC very dramatically bring the bishop from the previous episode to confront the demons. But they pretty much spend the rest of the episode showing the demons talk trash to the bishop.
We decided to start things off with our spirit box, which rapidly scans through frequencies where these entities can communicate through.
It's going down with the bishop. Strange phrasing. Almost like that's not actually what they said. So what Zach conveniently left out of the spirit box explanation just now was that it scans radio frequencies, meaning everything that comes through is going to be snipped from an actual live radio broadcast nearby. It's going down with the bishop is obviously just a line from a song. As for which exact song, I can't say for sure, but I would be willing to bet that the actual line doesn't have the word bishop in it, just something that sounds like bishop. For example, they could also be singing about something like going down with the ship. That makes a lot more sense than it's going down with the bishop. All right, here's another funny spirit box response.
How many of you are here with us?
Funny timing on that one, but it's obviously just from a radio station jingle. I know that's 7 anywhere.
7, 7, 7, 7!
They mess around with an Ovilus-like device that spits out random words from a preloaded dictionary. It should be obvious why anything from a device like that would be unreliable, but it does create a pretty funny moment with the bishop.
And once again, we are going to have to bleep out one of the words.
Can we or can we not swear?
That's about it for the GAC's return to Bobby Mackey's. Almost the entire episode is them just playing these sketchy audio clips from these sketchy devices that they're using. And other than that, they're just retreading old ground.
Johanna, are you down here in the dressing room?
They close out the episode with Zach and Aaron swapping stories about being demonically influenced while the bishop cleansed the building. It's a shame we didn't get to see it because they didn't record it.
You know, there's something that I don't think should be recorded.
You want me to stop recording?
I think that's a good idea.
Whoopsie. Forgot to record the TV show. Oh well. The GAC has not been back to Bobby Mackey's since their return in 2010, partly because Zach maintains that he had spirits attached to him and follow him home. And he said recently in a promotional video for Discovery Plus that he wasn't interested in going back to Bobby Mackey's.
I'm not interested in going back there.
It's so weird to see what he looks like now. Anyway, towards the end of that promo video, he made a comment I found interesting about the spirits at Bobby Mackey's.
When you have an aggressive force, that means it's more loud, it's more active, and you can capture that. We can capture that activity.
Let's test that theory out, shall we? What have other investigators uncovered at Bobby Mackey's? In the next video, we'll take a look at what other paranormal investigators have found.
Is anybody here that wants to talk to us?
Yes! Or not found.
Whoa, they got Peter Frampton tapes in here. And Springsteen!
At Bobby Mackey's. Ghost hunters.
That's a lot of noise from up there.
Is there someone in here who doesn't like women?
Nick Groff.
I'm gonna use the God helmet.
Ryan and Shane.
Holy shit.
Turn the light off!
Oh my god.
And Sam and Colby.
That is the most scariest thing I've ever seen.
Plus, we'll finally dig up the root of all these urban legends by going through what's written in Doug Hensley's book, Hell's Gate. I don't want to spoil anything, but trust me, you're not going to believe the stuff that's written in this book. It's quite the ride, we'll just say for now. All this and more in the climactic part 2 of The Most Haunted Nightclub in America.
Bye.